You're listening to the Nerd to Know Media Network. Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of the Game Corner. Going out slightly later this week than usual, but it's well worth it because we have, once again, the wonderful Darragh O'Connor on with us. Darragh, how you doing?
Hey, Kane, doing great. Thanks for having me on.
No worries, it's always a pleasure to chat to you. I've to kind of break the fourth wall here. The most recent edition of Nerd to Know was a wee bit on the mad side, wasn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. I actually edited it out today, so I'm like, actually, that's a great show. And it's funnier when I put the ads in it. It's funnier because it's like, out of context, it's like we come back literally in a second, but there's actually ads in it, so it kind of adds to it. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty funny.
It just looks like
Yeah.
we've got really slow kettles or something like that.
I don't know. I will eventually do the ads, but it's kind of funny or not as well because it's like a running gimmick.
Yeah, exactly. But this week we were thinking of doing the Star Wars games in general because I believe you have the very impressive milestone of owning all the Star Wars games in total, apart from one you sold on protest. Is that correct?
Not all of them, but I have made it a quest to get as many as I can
Right.
have. And I threw up on the Facebook page, an article I wrote probably 7 years ago, the top 50 Star Wars games when I worked for What Culture that you have to play.
Yeah.
And that was my first article that got 1 million views. So that was wild.
Really?
Yeah, back in the day, which was Tuesday. Um, yeah, so that I put that up because that's kind of, it's a genre that obviously really appealed to me, and our franchise even, and you can do so much. There's so many different games to play. So I've been trying to gather as many as I can, except for Fallen Order, which is the one you're referring to, and I did sell that one in protest.
Yes, which I know is a big gesture on your part because, like, your relationship, before we get into, because I know you got a bit of news to talk about, your relationship with, like, Battlefront 2 was, like, up and down and up and down. So it seems like a very big gesture that you just didn't take to Fallen Order, especially when everyone else seemed to like it.
Not really. Like, I think people like that it was a single player. They kind of went back to it because obviously under EA they were like, yeah, we're just gonna do multiplayer games, and nobody wants to play single player stories. So I think that was why people liked it so much. But when you do a search of Fallen Order, it's interesting because there's some articles saying it's a good game, but I don't understand why I don't like it. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. Like, it looks beautiful, it's all that kind of stuff, but it bored me to tears. And I was just like, yeah, this isn't good. This is very hollow.
Well, we'll swing on to more positive things because before we get into the news, I know I'm gonna end up saying that until like 20-minute mark. Like these Star Wars games, it's worth mentioning they aren't just games with the Star Wars license. George Lucas started LucasArts as like a wing of his own company and of the Star Wars universe back in the 80s and 90s, didn't he? I'm assuming you're kind of more up on this than I am.
Yeah, so like LucasArts is an off-brand to Lucasfilm, and a lot of it, particularly near the end, near the beginning, was before Star Wars kind of came back, before the prequels. It was the only real way to continue Star Wars, I suppose, other than the books. And it was funny, some of the games like Rebel Assault and stuff, they actually used props from the movies.
Oh,
like
yeah.
from the actual original OT trilogy. So that's why it kind of always had that air of legitimacy to it, because it's like, whoa, these are the real. And I remember playing Rebel Assault 2. This was on the PS1 many moons ago, and it had FMVs, and they're very primitive when you look at them now. But it was like, wow, you get to fly the Millennium Falcon, you get to go on Y-wings, and it's like, it was so crazy to see the actual props from the movies just been there used. You could go to Endor and all this kind of stuff. And this was like in the mid-90s, so it was that's what was always special about them, having that there, you know.
Yeah, and it's worth stressing that, like, now in this day and age, or especially more in the 2000s, every franchise had a game. Like each of the Harry Potter films had a game. The Simpsons had a multitude of games. But this was different. This wasn't just games with a Star Wars sticker slapped on it. These were kind of curated, weren't they? In the same way the books and the comics and like were.
Well, initially you'd have your tie-in games. So if you go back further enough, you hit, the Atari, and
Mm.
you hit the Master System and the SNES and all that kind of stuff. They were all kind of tie-in games. So your Super Empire Strikes Back, Super Star Wars, Super Return of the Jedi.
Oh, I
It
should say
wasn't until
I did try the Super Return of the Jedi on like a little game machine you got me at our
mm,
first convention.
mm,
Oh god, that is
tough.
a punishing. I don't think
Yeah,
I got my land speeder out of like the first level. Like,
no, they're tough. They're very tough. I think the curated game. Let's put it that way. The
yeah,
created games were kind of a thing that were running parallel. So these were kind of games that you normally see on the PC mainly.
mm,
That's where you'd go for your Star Wars games that actually had substance rather than just a tie-in.
yeah.
Other than Star Wars Arcade, because Star Wars Arcade is the kind of its own thing, and we get into that. But your created games were on the PC. So your Jedi Knight series, your Rogue Squadron series, which would go to and end up being a Nintendo 64 thing. Um, Obviously X-Wing is a huge one. That thing is just unbelievable.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then obviously Rogue Squadron. So like there's so much to get through, but I think um in the early days, if you were a console gamer, you were kind of screwed. You were going to get your tie-in. But if you had a PC, you were going to get something a bit more substantive. And that's when you'd start getting lore building games, like games that brought in Call of Catan, games that expanded out past episode 6,
Yeah.
which was the only thing we had really, other than the books. And a lot of things would kind of jump back and forward. So that's why it's important to not downplay these, because it wasn't just a case of, oh, here's a movie, because
Yeah.
there was no movies up until the prequels. There was only 3 movies, and that was it.
Yeah, and like it's because I don't think I probably was into Star Wars as early as you were, but like I got into Star Wars in '97, and like the
Right.
likes of like say the Rogue Squadron game or Shadow of the Empire, they were your kind of like you said your go-to things if you wanted more Star Wars at the time. Now we have a
Yeah.
multitude of cartoons and stuff, so you're right. That really was to me emotionally, the video games are as much Star Wars as the films. Do you know what I mean?
More so.
Yeah.
I would say more so, yeah. Like, some of the best things that you've ever got in Star Wars are the games, not the movies. Like, we'll get to it, but Knights of the Republic is probably the best Star
You
Wars
beat
thing
me
ever
to
made.
it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a reason. Like that, Knights of the Old Republic is one of those rare things where it's it's famous as an island now, and not just as a random Star Wars branch. Like people who haven't played it have at very least heard of it on its reputation
Yeah.
as a series. Like,
Yeah, but also the same with Jedi Knight. Jedi Knight series is amazing. Has my favorite Star Wars character in it.
ah,
As I said, Rebel Assault. Force Unleashed. These are all things that took a life of their own and are more famous as their own thing before the Disney decanonization, which thankfully looks like they're going to roll back on.
yeah.
So that's good. But it's like without these, the Star Wars franchise would be non-existent. Really, that's
Mm.
kind of like the biggest problem that like we talked about this on the show. That like when you're talking about the movies only do so much. They're very like shallow in a lot of sense. Like the
Well,
prequels.
there's only so much room you can do with a movie. In
Well, that's
fairness,
it.
.
Exactly, that's it. And like the prequels, for all their hate, I will say that the prequels are more important for what they gave the sandbox that George Lucas gave.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
like I wrote another article couple like around the same time that the Xbox is like a treasure trove for Star Wars games, and that's and literally the original Xbox, because it was in up for 2005 was a mid-tier PC,
Mm.
right? So you could play all these PC games on it. And if you're looking for something, well, I know people have PCs now, but you know, if you were looking for it back in the day, the only choice you could have was to really go for an Xbox, and that's why we got Knights of the Old Republic. But there was a whole rake of Star Wars games made after the prequels, including Knights of the Old Republic, based on the world that it opened up. Because it's like, oh well, we can go beyond this. We go beyond the parameters set by George Lucas. That even, you know, early on into this kind of expanded universe thing, they were like, right, there's only so much we can do. We kind of have to go back rather than keep going forward, because you know, anyone who's read the books knows that you jump back and forward and you go, it's a whole thing, right? But the best thing about Star Wars was, in this media, was it's like you could kind of do whatever you wanted, and that's what the best games kind of did, you know. But yeah, we'll get into them, and I'm gonna set some rules. So the first rule is, since I'm gonna go through 5, I'm only gonna pick one per series.
Okay, that's fair.
And by series I mean, for example, Battlefront 2 won't be the same as EA Battlefront.
Yes,
right?
yes, fair. Yeah, yeah.
So they're the only rules I have. But some news that I wanted to mention real quick, just by happenstance, because I thought it was a joke until I saw it. There's going to be, for all you Sims fans, which, you know, no shame in it. I'm a big fan of The Sims too. Sims 4 is getting a story-driven Star Wars DLC, and this broke yesterday.
What?
Yeah. So Thursday's afternoon, GameCon's opening night released a new story-driven game pack called Star Wars Journey to Batuu. So Batuu is obviously the outpost.
This is the park, isn't it?
The Star Wars land. Yeah,
yeah,
correct.
yeah.
So yeah, look, it looks pretty sweet. I'm 100% buying this. And yeah, so in expected Star Wars fashion, you can build lightsabers for your Sims, engage in lightsaber sparring, build droids, and help out on faction missions. Kyber crystals are a key component to lightsaber crafting, so you can also bring them home. And yeah, so that's gonna be fun. So Star Wars is they're obviously gonna bring in stuff from Mandalorian as well, apparently. But yeah, so this is coming. Let me find the release date. It doesn't say, but it will be priced. Oh yeah, September 8th.
That's okay.
Soon.
That's wow. I feel like the entire world has changed, because we spent like 4 months just reviewing The Simpsons on the Nerd to Know main show,
But
and
that's
now all
because
of a
the
sudden,
world ended.
Bill and Ted has apparently come out today.
I
like
saw
games,
today.
games get announced and they get dropped like the next week. Like it's like someone's like messing around with the speed of like a record or something like that. I can't keep up with it. Like,
let's not talk about Bill and Ted, because that's a whole different
we're gonna have to save that for
a whole different show,
Wednesday or Saturday, depending on your choice of listening. But yes, I am excited, because we should really do an episode on The Sims in and of itself. But with The Sims, whenever something comes out with The Sims, I always I'm gonna love that, and I'm gonna disappear from the world for a decent. I think actually the very first Game Corner was just about me and Katie's experience of just disappearing from the planet Earth for a decent whack of months. Like, but
this looks really good. This looks like it's gonna be something great.
The first image, I know that listeners won't get the benefit. The first image I found was oh my goodness, what are the Twi'lek? A Twi'lek handing a rose to a stormtrooper who looks, despite wearing a helmet, startled. So if it's got a sense of humor, I'm all for it. Like,
totally. Well, look, at least it might make people have some affinity towards Batuu, because nobody cares about it. So,
and Hondo's in it, and like I will give almost anything a chance if Hondo is in it. You put Hondo in a Twilight movie, I will go see that Twilight movie. No shame, but it's not my thing. But if Hondo's in it, I'll be there. He doesn't even need to be the love interest. Just put him in it for a few minutes. I'll be there.
Well, that's the news anyway that I had. So that's a bit of Star Wars gaming to look forward to, I suppose, and also Star Wars Squadrons, which is coming out around middle of October, I believe. So yeah, there is a bit of future to look forward to, I suppose, going forward. But what I want to do on this is give people the opportunity to play some stuff that they have, or hear about stuff that they haven't heard of before.
Yeah, let's do your kind of top 5, your best hits, because I know you are a proper archivist. So what's your first pick?
I'm going to do them in no particular order, just because, you know, they're all worth your chance.
They're all your children. That's fine. I get it.
Well, I wish I was working on some of them, because that'd be unbelievable. But you know, it just is what it is. So look, the first one to kind of talk about, obviously, it was like my first kind of real experience with it, and I kind of touched on it. For me, it was one of those things where I'm like, oh my god, this is a game changer. Rebel Assault 2,
Right.
not not the best game of all time, I will admit, right? Clunky, messy, shows its age. Came out in 1995 for DOS, PlayStation, and Windows, right?
Right.
But the story was so unique. Story was so unique. Basically, you're going on a mission to find a hidden TIE fighter, and you need to steal one away from the Empire.
Right.
Um, and that was the whole concept for me was just so wild. I was like 8, and I was like, oh my god, this is crazy. This is so weird. Actually, younger. It was weird because I didn't think that was a thing. I remember renting it when my dad rented it for me, and I took it home. And remember when you get a game on a Friday night and it had to be good, or your weekend was ruined
Yeah,
because you had no other games.
yes, because now and again I would get like a PC game as a kid, and it was just incomprehensible, and I was like, ah, well, gotta wait 6 days until we rent Episode 1 Racer again.
Oh, absolutely. That was it. You know, I remember renting this and I played it and then I rented it again and again and again and eventually I bought it and it was just like this is incredible. So again, it was the first time that really kind of like I'm like, oh wow, these are all no one from the Star Wars movies are in this. Obviously, because it was what like 10, 12 years after
Mm.
after Jedi. But all the iconography was there and the costumes was there and that kind of stuff. But like to put this into context, when I got my first Millennium Falcon, there was a mission where you would fly the Millennium Falcon in your Tie Fighter gear.
Mm.
The first time I got the Tie Fighter, my Millennium Falcon, I put the not Tie Fighter gear, the Rebel orange jumpsuit.
Yeah,
I would recreate that mission rather than putting Han Solo in the cockpit.
yeah,
So I was like, I mean, that made a bigger impact on me, and it's just great. Like if you haven't played it, maybe give it a miss, but definitely watch the FMVs. The movie is quite good too. But yeah, look, it has to go up there because it was a game changer for me
So
personally.
what? So what's kind of the? I have a few images. I might put them on the thumbnail for the video. But like,
Mm.
what was kind of the layout? Are we talking a shooter? Are we talking a space shooter? What kind
Kind of
of?
everything,
Okay.
right? So it was a mainly vehicle based. That's what
Right.
was cool as well. So I kind of played like Rogue Squadron, but it was more clunky. But it had elements where it was like on rail shooting as
Yeah.
well. So there was one horrible mission where you're in the canyon, you're going back and forward, and it was impossible trying to fly what a B bomber just really clunkily. But yeah, look, it was one of the things when you beat it, you're like, oh my god, this is great, and then flying the Phantom Tie Fighter
Mm.
was just amazing. You're like, oh my god, this thing's so powerful, right? Because you never saw it before. Like that's the thing. It was just
Mm.
a totally new, completely different thing, and just blew everything out of the water for me, even on a PlayStation. Which, to be fair, did its best, but
Yeah.
could only do so much.
But
Um,
but from a story point of view, you've hit upon sort of the Rogue One magic ingredient, which is most of the PC games are just small stories that are part of the Star Wars universe. They aren't
yeah,
trying to be the biggest and baddest and most scary thing ever.
yeah, like this is a
They're
mission.
yeah, yeah,
This
yeah.
was just a mission, like
And that
and that
makes
was
and
it.
that makes the stakes feel almost higher. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, and that was something that I thought was the best combination for a Star Wars game. That's what Star Wars games should be. They should just be. Yeah, so it just kind of opened up the possibility of what was available and stuff like that, and it kind of opened stuff beyond just the Star Wars canon over and over again, the same hero's journey story. I think the best Star Wars games are small stories or even bigger stories but focus on different things, and this was kind of my first experience towards it. My next pick came along 2 years later. I'm gonna kind of roll into that now.
Mm.
So the next one that I go for is Star Wars Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2.
This is one of the big famous ones now.
This is one of the big famous ones.
Yeah.
Now, can I just say, Jedi Knight 2 is a better game.
Right.
Jedi Academy is a better game again, right? And they're actually both out for the PlayStation 4. So if you have a PlayStation 4, I'm replaying them on that, and it's super fun. But Dark Forces 2 has Kyle Katarn in it, and it's a
Yeah, maybe
sequel.
for the relative Star Wars newbies, let's back up a bit. Who is Kyle Katarn?
Kyle Katarn is the best Star Wars character.
Right, that's quite an endorsement.
Well, he's the man who stole the Death Star plans.
Originally.
No, he did.
Okay.
He stole the Death Star plan. So he, like, in the first mission of Dark Forces, that's what you do. And Dark Forces is basically a Doom clone, right? It just is. But you know, the first mission you go in and you steal the Death Star plans, and then it kind of goes on and does its own thing. Dark Forces 2 is more interesting because you become a Jedi as well. It's your story to being a Jedi, and you don't want to be. Like, you really don't want to be, and it's kind of going back and forth to it. But the story is great, and it has some really good moments in it where you're trying to hunt down. You're being hunted by the Sith Lord, but not really a Sith Lord because it's, you know, he's not Vader, and he's kind of just off doing his own thing. So when you kill Jarek, or when you're fighting Jarek, it's not the same thing. But the FMVs and acting in it are actually unbelievable. Again, if you don't want to play the game, just watch the FMVs for the story. And the cool thing about it is this is like one of the first real times that the tropes of good and evil kind of became a thing. Okay. So if you were good, you get the good ending. If you were bad, you get the Sith ending. And the Sith ending is you're the Emperor, basically. And it's
so we're getting into the sort of,
really
I mean, I know you're going to hate me for this, but the kind of Mass Effect type morality system that's in Knights of the Old Republic first, and all, like that kind of type of gameplay.
Yeah, well, it kind of links it up with when you're a Force user, that's what kind of happens. What I will say is the CGI does not age well, because obviously you didn't have the budget to do on location stuff, so it's literally a lot of green screen, but that's what Lucasfilm did, right? That's what LucasArts did. They were always pushing it and developing it, but the gameplay is great. It starts off as a first-person shooter, but then, you know, you get to use a lightsaber and force power and all this kind of stuff, and that gets refined and refined and refined until you get to Jedi Academy, where it's like, actually, Outcast or Academy, depending on the day, is better or the other. Like, Outcast, you can, like, decapitate people and cut people's arms off and stuff. It's mad. You really are like a super Jedi in that. But yeah, if you're looking for a good Kyle Katarn story, you know, start off with Dark Forces 2, then play Outcast, and then play Academy. And a great book as well is I, Jedi, which is my favorite Star Wars book. Like, and it's all because of this. So the whole Jedi Knight series is definitely worth your time if you're a Star Wars fan. Really, there's no excuse for you not to have played this, because it's some of the best. But if you don't want to play it, watch the movies that are on YouTube, and read the books. But look.
Well, before you go on to your next pick, though, it's because like because we talk off the air. We're both big kind of Red Letter Media fans, and like they kind of talk frequently about Star Wars being creatively bankrupt. You know, scrappy person up against an evil empire led by a person in a black cape. But like you mentioned the sandbox earlier, the video games, perhaps by way of not having that mass appeal, really had the freedom to just flesh things out, didn't they, and create new things.
Well, that's it. You know, it's like, it's got to do with what the perception of Star Wars is, and that we saw with them. And I'm not going to harp on the movies, because God, we've done like 60 episodes.
Check episodes 1 through 57, if not more. Like, you know.
Yeah, you don't need to hear that, but it's like, the thing about Star Wars is it's always been a sandbox. Right, there's always been a place where you can go in and you can get the story that you like. It's just why it's mad when you hear people going, "Oh, there's no women in Star Wars." I'm like, are you for real? You're for real. There's gay Star Wars characters. There's a trans woman in Star Wars, I believe. It has this massive, crazy, diverse list of Star Wars characters and Star Wars lore and stuff like that. It's just not in the movies, because the movies aren't for the general public. They're for the fans.
Yeah.
It's like everything else, you know, and that's it. You know, it's like, if you boil something down to it's, and again, and the reason why is because the people creating this media realized, oh, if we tell the story again, we're just going to hit the same problem. And they did, to be fair, they did do that in the books, where, you know, Jason and Jaina Solo ended up just repeating the saga again with Darth Caelius.
Yeah,
and it's like, it's good, but it's like, you've seen it, right? So that's why they're like, oh, if we just tell other stories with other characters doing other things. And it's like, yeah, so the gaming division and the books division figured this out 30 years ago. And now Lucasfilm, well, under Disney, are like, oh crap, right, we better try do that because we're in a lot
Yeah,
of trouble.
it's funny. It's because like the only comparison I can think of is like imagine like, I know you're not the biggest Star Trek fan, but imagine a parallel universe where apart from like the super fans, the only things people knew about Star Trek were the original three series and those reboots they did like back in 2009, and didn't know Picard, didn't know Next Generation,
Mm.
Voyager, all that kind of stuff, and all the fans knew it. But then you have people coming up to you going, "Oh, Star Trek, Kirk, Spock, nothing else happening," and like your brain just short circuits with all the information you want to get across in a really short amount of time. You know?
It's not even that. It's like, it, at least that was done from a good place, I
Mm.
suppose. The new Star Wars movies were done cynically. And the difference was with these games and books, they weren't done cynically. Obviously, they're done to make money because, look, everyone likes money, right?
Yeah.
But what I mean is, it's like these were fans who grew up on the movies
Mm.
and wanted to tell the story. And they were allowed to. Because at the end of the day, well, game development is hard. And, you know, I listen to this show a lot, and it's great when you have game developers on. It's like, yeah, it's hard. It's like, yeah, it is. Um, and it's like, that's the thing, you know, while it's difficult, they're also given a lot of freedom because they own the studio. And the expensive part with the performative actors and stuff, you know, they were able to tell their story. Now, again, the CGI looks terrible, but it didn't look terrible for 1990, what, 1997?
Well, look,
So,
I'm a person who will always, if given the chance, watch Star Wars with the original effect. So I'll forgive graphics any day of the week if it's in service of something interesting. You know, I
yeah,
feel like, not to go too far off topic, but I feel like a lot of games get by on the pretty graphics and not a lot of heft to them these days, and
no
that's not a
substance.
Star Wars thing necessarily. But
Well,
I think,
look, on that point, I don't get much chance to play games that much as much as
mm,
I'd like to anymore.
yeah,
So when I do, it's an hour here and there and stuff like that. And last night I was the main game. Like last night I was playing Jedi Academy,
right.
and it's the first game that actually hooked me in a long time, other than Battlefront 2. But normally when I'm playing games nowadays, I'm like, oh, I'm bored. Oh, I'm bored. Oh, I'm bored. And like, you know, that's what kind of happens. But I was playing Academy, which is a game that came out in 2003, and I was incredibly hooked. So it's like, there you go. It's graphics aren't everything. It's about the story, it's the gameplay, it's the fun you're having, it's the challenge. You know, and that's what I'm saying. If you're looking for that, there really is no excuse to go and play it. Like they've been on GOG forever, they're on Steam, but now they're on the PS4. So you have a PS4, go for it. And it's also on the Switch as well, which you'd be
Mm.
happy about, man.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, there's a shocking like lack of Star Wars games on the
Mm.
Switch. Like I assumed that was like maybe they signed a deal with PlayStation or something like that.
I, I,
Something
I just think
beyond
it's
me
easy.
there.
I think it's easier just to develop on a PlayStation 4, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I suppose so. Listen, we're
Right.
running up against it slightly
Yep.
time-wise. I may
Okay.
have you back on to do the further list of games, but you've one more
Absolutely.
pick for us before we wrap.
All right. Well, look, I'll go with an easy one then. Knights of the Republic.
Yes.
Have to. Have to, have to, have to. And I'd love to come back to finish this, so we totally will. Knights of the Republic is the Star Wars game.
Mm.
Right? It's the one game that if you're a Star Wars fan, you haven't played it, oh my God, what's wrong with you? Right?
Yeah, yeah, get in there now before a film comes out that doesn't get the point or something
Yeah,
like that.
totally, totally. Now, I will have to say, when I go back and if I'm playing these, I will go back and play the second one faster, solely because you get the lightsaber straight away,
Mm.
or almost straight away. So you get to have a bit, and you get force powers almost straight away. There isn't like an hour and a half of running around Taris before you get your lightsaber.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I'm like, oh, I kind of want to use force powers right now. But look, from a story standpoint, Knights of the Republic is the game to play. It's unbelievable. I remember it's the reason why I got an Xbox. I got an Xbox in 2004, and I got it solely for Knights of the Republic and Halo, and that was it. Didn't care about anything else. And then it was one of the best decisions I ever made. Um, and I remember picking it up, playing it, been blown away by the twist, and just it's incredible. Like, I cannot emphasize how much of an impact this game has had on me. As a fan, as a even as a gamer and like that, it's great. It introduced so many characters, introduced so much gameplay mechanic. Obviously, introduced the whole Mass Effect
Mm.
character progression system and morality playing system. I have Revan, Malik, and Bastila all as action figures.
Mm.
Um, I love them. It's unbelievable. Like it's so beyond anything else in any franchise as far as it's a movie series but was bested in every conceivable way by different media. It's incredible. Like it nails the tone, it nails the feel. It's everything you want, and it's a great world to go back to. And you get to see so many different parts of the galaxy. You get to, go to the deserts of Tatooine. You get to go to Dantooine. You go to Nar Shaddaa. You end up going to the Sith home world, um, which will always be not the new one. I know they changed the name. So what's
Well, what was the original name?
you know what? I cannot remember. So I'm gonna have a quick Google here. Korriban. Yeah, it's always gonna be Korriban, not whatever they call it now, because that's a
Moraban.
lie. That is fake news. Whatever they call it now, it's
Yeah,
Korriban.
I remember watching because for context, I believe they changed it in an episode of Clone Wars because George Lucas just didn't like the sound of it or something like that. And I remember my brother like throwing something at the screen or something like that. I was like,
Mm.
something's going on here.
What I liked about the Star Wars, what I liked about Korriban in particular,
Mm,
it was the first time you got to see it. And
yeah.
also it was done like ancient Egypt where you go through the tombs and like the Valley of the Kings. And it's just like, man, this is so cool. This creativity is unbelievable. And remember, this came out around the same time as the prequel. So people were going, the prequels aren't great. I'm like, yeah, but look what it gave us.
Yeah. I suppose really
Oh.
because like I started playing KOTOR as it's affectionately called on your many recommendations back when I first kind of started doing these things. And like the two things that really jump out at you is it's got the tone of the original Star Wars, that slight grittiness to it that seems to
Yeah,
have disappeared.
lived in. Yeah.
Lived in. And that you hit my second point there, which is that you get the sense that you could play this and it's so removed from the actual plot of all the other stuff that it really feels like a lived in universe. It feels like this. I know we said that about the first game as well, but like this one in particular, it feels like all the characters have their own cultures and all that kind of stuff. They're not just plucking things. It feels both brand new and faithful at the same time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's the thing, it's the major like downfall of what Disney have done by wiping out, and they've realized this now because mark my words, they're going to roll back on this,
Hmm.
because they have to, because it's like, whoa, we have everything we need right here. Like
Yeah.
it's all here, and it's like they, if you haven't played it, when the first, I will be honest, the first hour is a bit, it's not great. But after that, it's like that's like all RPGs, right? All RPGs are kind of, you know, you gotta escape, and Bethesda ones are the worst. Oh, you got to go through the prison.
Yeah. Yeah.
You gotta wake up. So stick with it and then go through it. But when it really gets going, you have it's the most Star Warsy Star Wars thing
Mm.
ever, and it's an absolute masterwork. There were talks of a remake or remastering in the Unity engine, I believe, or the Unreal Engine. I can't remember which one. And Disney killed that, which sucked because it looked great. So we might get that eventually. But
Well, maybe I think they'd be mad not to either do a sequel or remake if they're planning on doing a film, like, because
yeah,
like,
like it's free money. Right?
yeah,
It's free money, and people will pay for it. And that's the
yeah,
thing, it's not like they have to license it out. Well, I think the biggest problem with the new approach is, do you want to recreate the wheel? The wheel was already recreated,
mm,
and Star Wars KOTOR did that in every way. It's why, like, now, when did KOTOR came out? I think it was 2003.
yeah,
It's nearly 20 years, and people still hold that up as the benchmark.
Yeah, and it's
You know.
worth like pointing out that actually I'm slightly nervous about. I know a lot of people are excited about a Knights of the Old Republic film, but even as someone who didn't grow up with this, I kind of want this corner of the universe safe. Like Stevie got into Star Wars through the Knights of the Old Republic comics. So like
Mm.
this is its own little breathing ecosystem. Like, if you swapped out the names of the Sith and stuff, it could be its own thing. So how do you feel about, in a weird way, this being pushed to the forefront of like kind of pop culture and that kind of stuff?
Hire Keanu Reeves to be Revan, and then you're good. You'll be fine.
Excellent.
You'll be fine. Like literally, that's all you got to do. Like
Malik and Revan's excellent adventure.
that'd be great. It'd be awesome. But like no, seriously, like that would be a good choice.
Mm,
Because he's a mute protagonist.
yeah.
So it's like Keanu Reeves can do that, right? It's like
Mm,
he doesn't have to really do much. But no, look, I think if they could do it well, I think they got their ass kicked so thoroughly in general that they nearly
mm,
killed the franchise that they have
mm,
to start digging up. It's like what we talked about on the show
yeah.
last week with DC, where they got their face pummeled so badly that they're like, oh, all we have to do is unlock the multiverse. Cool. Star Wars can do the same thing. All we have to do is unlock the expanded universe. Cool. Let's do that. And I think the games are a great way to kind of field
Mm,
test that. I guarantee you, if you re-release these games, any of the ones that I've picked, and even with the ones on the PS4, they're selling quite well too. So it's there, man. It's there. But look, we'll leave it there. And I don't want to keep you here all night, but I have two more really good picks that we'll get to.
Tell you what, I challenge you to get this Sims Star Wars download, and we'll review that and cover the other two next time you're on.
Okay, let's do that. So that's out on what, mid-September?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Cool. So yeah, I'll pop back on then when I get it, and we'll do a review then and do that. Cool, man. That sounds
Okay.
good to me.
Well, before we wrap, is there anything you want to say about Star Wars in general, or on the air, or just about the world at large? Because this episode will be going out tomorrow, which is it's swifter than usual for my turnover.
Cool. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on, Kane.
No worries, always a pleasure.
As somebody who uploads all the shows and stuff like that, it's always a pleasure to listen to who you have on.
Oh, well,
And
thank
I
you.
enjoy them. No worries. It's only the truth. And yeah, I think it's great. I've loved what I've seen about the show growing since it started. So to be honest, it's quite good. I know our own show is very, very hectic and very crazy, but a nice focus one is good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that first of all, that's great. But yeah, anyone who's listening, thanks very much for checking us out. Nerd to Know Media exists because you guys. So if you like what you hear, subscribe. That'd be fantastic. And Star Wars in general, look, it seems like we've turned a corner now. So I'm excited to see what this Sims game is going to be like. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, because what it represents, not to kind of get too like kind of excited over like a Sims DLC, but like what it says to me is that, okay, when Star Wars got bought out, they were so panicked about what is allowed and what isn't that they burned up all the goodwill and all that kind of stuff. If they're letting it be a bit goofy, to me, that's a positive indication, like, oh, we're relaxing a little bit and we're
Yeah.
going to let people just play with it and see what happens,
That's what they needed. They were so afraid of someone breaking their $4 billion.
Yeah. Which is understandable, but like,
But they broke it themselves. They broke it themselves. So it's more like, they were like an older sibling who got like this great toy, and like they broke the arm off it, and then they're giving it to their younger sibling and go, here, this is for you. And the younger sibling's like, yay, new toy. And it's like missing an arm, but they'll love it more than anyone else. So that seems to be what's happening.
Yeah, there's like I'm sure there's some Darth Vader parallel fall to the dark side that could be drawn out from that, but we're recording way too late at night.
Well, look, we'll just see what happens. And that's all we can do. But
yeah.
Other than that, if anyone was on Twitter, follow me on Twitter at DarraghWV. Go over and check out nerdtoknowmedia.com, and that's all I've got to say.
And I can guarantee if you hit up Darragh with a Star Wars question, he will probably have the answer.
I would do my best. But remember, guys, anything Disney say is false news, fake news. So just check that out.
We got so close. We were like a minute from the end without controversy. We got so close. You know what? I was tempted to take that out in editing, but I'll leave it. All right.
They know what they do. They know.
Yeah, exactly. They know us by now. All right, Darragh, thank you so much for giving up time from your very, very busy schedule.
No worries, man. Anytime.
No worries. And if you've enjoyed this show, feel free to like check out the other episodes. And if you would fancy appearing on the show, this show is, in case it's your first one, is designed to kind of reach out and meet new people. We've had some really, really good guests on the last few. Like we had Dave on last week talking about his monk training. We had Michael Hilliard on talking about his Russian shooters, and Lucas about all the stuff in Vegas. So like we've had lots of really cool people who've literally just reached out to us like and said, hey, can I be on this thing? So if you're listening, come hit us up on the Nerd to Know Media or the Facebook page. I'm always excited to meet new people. And otherwise, thank you very much for tuning in. I have been Kieran Calicon, and this has been Darragh. And we'll see you at the same time next week. Give a wave, Darragh, virtual wave.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.
Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.